Those are leaders who continuously build a nation from within. To have a clarity of their responsibilities and duties ensures they never miss any opportunity to be effective in what they do. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Seema Chhoriya, and I welcome you all to another brand new episode on Great Principles. Today's insightful conversation will be with my perceptive guest of today, Mrs. Rohini Rohit Gurung, Principal, Podar International School, Jalandhar. Welcome to Great Principles, ma'am. It's truly an honor to have you today with us.
Thank you so much, Seema ma'am. It's actually a pleasure to be with you this evening.
We are all excited and set to know about your journey, your vision, and your ideologies. So let us quickly begin without delaying anything. So, to all my dear viewers, once upon a time, ma'am was a home tutor like many of us, teaching her cousins and siblings. And today, she is leading the chair, edifying hundreds of children. Ma'am, so, I have a very interesting question for you today. Our parents have forgotten somewhere, and even many of us have forgotten somewhere in the race of the marks, that there is a difference between literacy and education. We are making our children literate, but are we making them educated, especially when we are running behind the marks? So I would like you to shine some light on this perspective and guide each one of us about the importance of being educated and not just literate.
Right. So, Seema ma'am, you asked me to tell something about my journey first. So, I'll take that part first. And it's been over 2 decades now. And like you said, I started teaching very early in my, school days. Education, like I said, was always the priority at home. My mother encouraged learning at home and learning of all kinds, be it scholastic subjects, math, science, literature, any language or art, music, sports. And I remember we going to our grandmother's place since my father was in the forces. So summer break, we would look forward to visiting Granny's house, and all the cousins and neighborhood children would get together. And I was given the responsibility, to sit with the kids and make them read something or, gainfully occupy them, being the elder one in the house. So that is how I got into teaching my own cousins, teaching the kids of the neighborhood, and I found a lot of satisfaction doing that. So that is how I got into teaching, and I don't know when, but I got this knack of being with the kids, being able to handle them, teach them, and put my point across, whatever it was. So, as people say, I was not a teacher by chance, but I was always a teacher by choice. My mother, during our younger years when I was in primary school, would tell me a shloka from Sanskrit that vidvatvam cha nripatvam cha nev tulya kadachana swadeshe pujyate raja vidwan sarvatra pujyate, which meant, a scholar, no matter where he goes, will always be revered by all the people, and a king would always be revered only by his subjects. This thing really drove the passion and the, learning in me, that yes, I would want to explore the world. I would want to be the, queen of hearts, where I touch the lives of people and I'm able to add some value to everybody's life. So, an interesting question that you asked me was, what is the difference between literacy and education? Well, ma'am, I would say literacy is a very, very narrow term. Being able to read and write is what we would term as literacy. And I would say literacy is a tool to being educated. Being educated is a far, far, far wider term. It's a person's demonstrated ability to listen carefully, think critically, reason analytically, find out and study facts rigorously, imagine creatively, right? And being open to different perspectives and alternative point of views. So I think that is what education does to us. And the best example in India, I would say, is the 15th century poet who led the Bhakti movement, Kabir Das. Kabir Das ji, he writes in one of the dohas that पोथी पढ़ पढ़ जग मुआ पंडित हुआ न कोई ढाई आखर प्रेम का पढ़े तो पंडित होए. So, it is not about our degrees, it is not about our certifications, it is about how do we perceive life, how do we perceive human relations. And it is disappointing, to see what is happening across the globe when we see in the news and watch about Russia and Ukraine. At the end of the day, all of us, we have the same blood, the color is the same. And it is important, that we save every life. We respect people. We are socially adaptable. We fit into a system where we respect our legal system, where we respect people's, identities, their being around. So I think education means adding to all this, and literacy is just a tool to explore. But then again, like I said, Kabir Das ji never went to any formal school, right? And still, we sitting in the 21st century are quoting Kabir Das ji, and I think that is what education does to all of us.
Certainly, very well said and very well related it to the Russian Ukraine crisis. So, to all my dear viewers, when you are reading about and listening about Russian Ukraine war, you are just literate. But when you understand that whatever is happening is wrong, there are heavy losses going to happen, and you accept that yes, this is wrong, this should be stopped immediately, that is when you are educated. So, open your horizon, be educated. If you are illiterate, that doesn't mean you are not educated. But if you are literate, you are still not educated. So just understand this difference very clearly. Ensure that our children, our generation is getting educated. So on this wonderful note of understanding what it means to be educated, we move on to our next question. So we talked about getting our children educated. So how do we help the students to evaluate their core strength and overcome their weaknesses? Because I think that is the toughest job to do. We all know that what is to be taught, so we know the subjects and we know the plan, lesson plans, the skills, what are the programs that are going on. But it is equally important to recognize the strength of the child, work on his weaknesses, and ensure that he's holistically developed.
True that, Seema ma'am. And, I would say when I talk about teachers, I take a lot of pride. And I would say when you see a human heart, which is slightly larger than an average human heart, you know that it is the heart of a teacher. Because, a teacher's heart is full of love, care, compassion, kindness, gentleness, acceptance, forgiveness, affection. And I would say it is quite a task for a teacher, to motivate the kids and to get them into a system where we look towards a holistic development of the child. So to develop the child's, strengths, we need to first know the backgrounds of our children. Today, in international schools, we have kids not only from India, but we have kids coming from all parts of the world, and we have to understand that every country, every even a state in India has a different culture, different language, a different understanding. So, a good teacher, a teacher who's passionate about his job, would take this extra mile and know about the background of the child. At times, teachers come to us and they say, oh, this child is not performing very well, is not very competitive. We forget that, there are two kinds of students thereafter, where in one household, the parents encourage being competitive, right? And the kids are also driven in the same way, and they would always want to win, and grab the first, second, or the third position, or be in the distinction list. Whereas in other households, the culture is such that the parents would say, okay, you need to compete with your own self, you're not competing with others, and let's get better day by day. So when the teachers sit without even knowing the background of the kid and what is the family culture, they would have they would have been misguided to a certain extent by saying the child is not competitive, is not participative, whereas it is not being not competitive or not being participative. Rather, it is a cultural thing. So I feel knowing your student is very, very important. Little things that a teacher should do in schools, which we follow here in our school, is that every day, we have made a 10 by 2 rule. A 10 by 2 rule is where, for 10 days, a teacher sits with a child for 2 minutes. Maybe during the break period, maybe, as we all come into the school and it's your settling down time. And those 2 minutes, the teacher interacts with the child, tries to know about the child, and once the teacher knows what the child thinks, what are his hobbies and interests, that is where a teacher can, hit on the nail and get on building the strengths of the child, work on his weaknesses or her weaknesses. So I think it is more about focusing on individual student, his background, his skills, his interests. And if we do that, I'm sure, it takes us a long way to open up the horizons for the children.
Very well said. This is something, I mean, many of us miss out. We talk to the just student and understand, "Acha, okay, this is what you like and this is what you not like." But what we fail to check is the background, which is the core, because that is where, the child spends most of his time and he's influenced by his family, his, the kind of culture which runs the environment of the family, that all automatically, make him also, his decisions also impacted what he wants, where he wants to reach. So this is very much important, and today you have brought this very beautifully, that the small exercise of just spending 2 minutes and knowing about the child, let him talk about his family, his own strength, his liking, is going to benefit a lot. So very beautifully explained. I thoroughly loved the concept of this, and I think this is something which can be practiced across all the schools. Such a beautiful initiative. Let the teachers know the child well, which will ultimately bring in better results. So on this beautiful tip shared by ma'am here, we move on to our next question. So, any praise for efforts and recognizing positive service is, appreciation, and we all crave for that. Who doesn't like the appreciation, whether it is in the form of words or some, just a small greeting from a child? So, it is essential for school leaders also to acknowledge and appreciate their team members' work and appreciation. So, tell me, how do you do that?
Right. Seema ma'am, you've said it, and you've nailed it, saying that it is human nature that we crave for appreciation, right? In the morning when we walk into the school and somebody says, "Oh, ma'am, you're looking great," and you feel, that your spirits are high, and this is the day where you'll go an extra mile and do something. This goes for every member of your team, be it your ancillary staff, be it your bus driver, the bus DDs, your peons, your teachers, your non-teaching staff. So I feel appreciation does work wonders, and it motivates people to do more than what they are expected to. It can be proven scientifically. So I feel not everyone have equal skills. A good leader would always identify, the skill set of every individual, rather than, expecting all five fingers to be the same. A good leader would be observant, um, and find out, identify, and then work on the strengths of the individual, appreciate them for the good work they do. And it is wonderful to see that, in a couple of months, the individual would hone more skills and perform better. And once you start performing better, it gets into a virtuous cycle where you're doing better and you want to do even better. You want to upgrade your skills, you want to learn something new, and that craving for appreciation rises, and good work gets better, and then, better gets into the best.
Certainly. So, if I put it that appreciation is the currency for success, if you want success, then it's not about monetary benefits, it's also about appreciation. So add this new currency in your system and see how wonders happen. So along with the paychecks, also ensure that you are adding one more currency, that is of appreciation, and then you are going a long way. This is what is going to help the team and you to grow. So wonderful note here again by ma'am shared, that just taken some time to appreciate the team, everyone craves for it. Moving ahead to our next question, ma'am, it is equally imperative to have someone whom you feel comfortable sharing your concerns with, and who value you, whose advice you value, and you are sure that they are going to think of your benefit always, whether it is a critique. So I would like to know from you that educationist you look upon for your advice, inspiration, and support.
Seema ma'am, I grew up as an army kid. I did not stay at one place for a very long time. If I look into my journey into education, I've been in places, stayed for 3 years, 4 years, and moved on. So it's very difficult for me to name a single person. I would say today when I am stuck into situations and where I feel what should I be doing. So I think of people I've worked with over the last 2 decades, and I would always think what that person would have done. And my go-to person, I would say, is my husband. He is also serving the nation. He's in the army, and I think he has that clarity of mind. And whenever at the end of the day you feel that you have a hurdle, you have to find solutions. It is just that you speak to somebody who is not into education. They are not judgmental about what is happening. They have zero idea about how schools are run, how kids think, and they would give you a common person's perspective. So when I deal with parents problems, because I'm a parent and I'm an educator, you tend to think more like an educator. This should be done. But when you talk to somebody who's not been into education, you think exactly like how a parent thinks, how a common person would think. So I would give that credit, and I would say my anchor, my support is my husband. So that is it.
Wow, so you have in-house support for you always 24 by 7 available. That's so great. And I really love the point where you mentioned, that try to have a different perspective, not from the same domain. This is something which is very different and unique, something which I've learned today. Because very rightly said that being an educator, we always look around like, okay, why the parent is complaining. But when you see it from their lens, things look altogether different. So I think this is something very unique which I've heard today, and this kind of advice we all should look forward to someone who is completely unaware of how things are run. So very good advice by ma'am here again. So on this wonderful note, we reach to a very interesting segment of the show. This is called rapid fire round. So you have to answer in a word or a sentence would do.
Right.
Okay. So here we start with our rapid fire round. Name that incident, narrate that incident to us that brings smile to your face.
Okay, seeing kids every day in school, that brings smiles to me. And seeing naughty kids.
Okay. All right. You spend your recreational time indulging in activities like,
I'm into meditation, I'm into Reiki, I am into crystal healing and gardening. So, there are a lot of things that give me a lot of respite and a lot of recreation, and, you feel recuperated after a long day.
wow. So, as per your hobbies, my next question to you is, do you think that healing is also associated with the belief? If the person believes, then only he can heal?
I think scientifically also it's proven, if you want to heal, you have to believe in that magic, and we have to let go of things, right? Like Gautam Buddha once said, feeling angry and holding anger against someone is like, holding a piece of charcoal in your hand and waiting for that person to come and pass by, and then, then you would throw that charcoal. But if you get that waiting all that time, we are hurting our own self. So acceptance and belief, will give you hope, and that will definitely heal us.
Certainly, and this is one thing which I love about children. They so very believe in magic, and for them, just everything, yes, it happens because it's magical. So
Yes.
we all need to follow this. And yes, if you want to heal, as ma'am said, start believing in it. So coming up to the next question, Podar has definitely established its ground in Indian soil, and there are like 137 branches all over. So one word for this wonderful group of schools.
Okay, one word. It's so difficult to, describe such a robust organization, such a fine organization. But I would say Podar is now, I would say, home to me. I don't feel I'm working here. So it's like, part of your extended family. So home. So when your school becomes your home, what happens and what would have preceded coming to that status.
I think you have wonderfully described in one word. There couldn't have been a better word for this, because once you feel that organization is my home, then the organization has achieved what they wanted, and even the we as team have achieved what we wanted. So I think this would be the biggest compliment for the group, to know that the employee feel like, this is my home and I'm no more an employee, I'm a member of this group. So biggest compliment I think you have given today. Moving ahead to the next question. You said that you also like cooking. So, how do you think that food is also the way to our souls? What is your thought on this statement?
Definitely, food has, the way to our souls. It runs your day, what we eat, how we eat, are we chewing our food? Everything is super, super important. These days, I meet mothers who would come to me and, who would ask me for some counseling. Oh, my child doesn't eat without seeing screen. The screen time is very, very important. But then I ask the parents, think what your child is doing when he's eating. Maybe he's, looking at some action, some violence, or maybe some futile thing, and not thinking about the food that is nurturing and, giving the child good health, energy, nutrition. So we need to be very, very mindful while eating. Eating and food is not just, getting something for energy. It is also the entire process, what we eat, the frame of mind that we eat. And as parents, we are living in metropolitan cities, we have busy schedules, but a good family would always make it, a basic rule that once in a day, maybe the breakfast hours are different, children tend to eat their lunch in school, but at least during the dinner time, all mobile phones should be, put in a basket or set aside, and then people should sit together and eat in silence, right? And that aura, that energy which is set in the dining table while eating can do so much of benefit to each and every member of the family.
Binge eating is major problem every mother is facing today. I see even in the restaurant, kids with the mobile phone and they're just fed. They don't even know what is going on in their mouth. So binge eating is definitely very harmful. I completely
Honestly,
agree on.
Seema ma'am, and kids would not even be able to tell you how a pizza tastes. You ask them how does it taste, they would not know because it is such a mindless eating. So binge eating is certainly a big no, and yes, eating has to be done mindfully.
Certainly. And you have shared a very good tip that at least ensure one meal you're having together in silence and making it a no gadget zone, of course. So to my all my dear parents, just follow these small tips and see you will be, just going away with the biggest problem of yours, and that is binge eating. So a big no for that. Moving ahead to the last question in this segment. Name the last book you read that has made a huge difference in your life.
It was Ikigai,
Hmm.
on
Japanese
the
book.
Japanese, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, it is my go-to book every time. It reminds you that we should not get into this mechanical way of life. Life has to be lived on its own pace, and life is beautiful. We cannot be in the, rush. Because if you consider life being a rat race, at the end of it, you know what you become, right? So,
Right.
Ikigai is the last book that I read.
And a wonderful book, I must admit. So I think those who have not read it, please definitely read it. It certainly changes the way you think. So
Yes.
moving ahead, we have reached to the last question of the show. This is called viewers choice question. So my viewers have picked up few questions, and this one I have shared for you. The first 5 years of a child are crucial to their health, well-being, and overall development of their lives in a varieties of ways. The two social sources equally responsible for this formative years are parents as well as teachers. So, why is social interaction fundamental to learning in children?
See, Seema ma'am, what I read in my B.Ed 25, 30 years back was man is a social animal and it holds good. We are nothing without society. We have seen the worst happening to our children in the past 2 years as the pandemic had set. Social interaction is vital and significant and necessary for our children. A child, when interacts socially with other people, learns to set boundaries for himself, set boundaries for others, learns to accept other people's point of views, understands how life has to be lived, how to appreciate other things, collaborate, cooperate with others. So there's so much happening when we socially interact. I think all the life skills, interaction, collaboration, cooperation, they are learned seamlessly, effortlessly when you socially interact with others. I have parents, coming to the schools these days, and they are a little anxious that kid has not gone to the school for last 1.5 or 2 years, right? And the child wants to stay indoors, child does not want to go out to the park. Now things have started opening up, things are getting better, with the vaccine and with our being aware. But the child wants to stay aloof, stay alone, in isolation. And when we interact with the child, we as educators feel so bad, so sorry, and we feel that there is so much more that we need to do in the coming few years to make do and bridge the gap of the last 1.5, 2 years, because taking the kids out of that zone where they have now got into the comfort of being alone, without social interaction, and the kind of challenges that parents are facing, the kids are facing, that needs to break off. So I think social interaction is super, super important. And be it in the class, I would always tell teachers that, it cannot be just talk and chalk. You cannot simply walk into the class, you are using a lecture method. It cannot happen like that. Children are little people, smart people, and they would want social interaction, and they would imitate, kids would imitate their elder ones. And definitely when the role models do well, children pick up all good habits. So social interaction cannot be negated, and it has to be increased now.
Certainly agree with you, ma'am. I've also seen in these 1.5, 2 years, especially the kids, those who are just about to step in the school, and there came the pandemic. They never knew what it is to be in the school, what it is to be around with other kids. Even the society is banned from playing, and everyone was just confided. And this was the right example of understanding the value of social interaction. And you rightly said, child's mind developed everywhere. So we are social animal, and to ensure that it develops in the right manner, we should always emphasize on this kind of interaction, because this is what builds a child. It gives them freedom to understand, to talk, to know each other, and it's very essential even in their future also, because otherwise how are they going to thrive in this world without interacting with others? So wonderfully explained,
Definitely.
ma'am. Yeah.
And Seema ma'am, now that we are into nuclear families with a single child concept or two kids, and if there is age difference, kids would not be together. Even the boys would want to play different games, the girls would think differently. So it is super important that being in nuclear families, being in bigger cities where life is already so lonely, children need to have that peer interaction. That builds a lot of self confidence, that builds an understanding, that builds in respect for each other, and
Yeah,
friendships.
and
That is most important.
true, and it helps a child to push himself beyond his own limits, because when he see that the other child is doing, even I can put in little effort and do. This is what we didn't find during online learning. What? Because the child, when he was just dozing off and the lecture was going on, he didn't realize that others actually completed it and understood it well, wherein I somewhere left it. So there are so many things actually about social interaction and learning and peer learning. It's the been a best form of learning ever. So that is, you rightly said, that is very much required. So ma'am, today we got to know some amazing tips from you about making education better, making the future of our children better, and ensuring that our team works in a great spirit. So thank you so much for your time to us. I really salute you, Rohini ma'am, and all the educators who put in their heart and soul in creating a future by designing it today. So thank you so much for your time with us and giving us an opportunity to share your journey.
Thank you so much, Seema ma'am. And it was truly a privilege. and a pleasure being on your show.